knowing all the...
Knowing what you know now. With the purpose of further investigating Chinese entrepreneurship or family entrepreneurship and so forth. You're not bound by the same rules, and you could recruit some confederates, if not partners, or people to assist you, because you reached out and touched a lot of different groups that one might expect, you might have limited access to. But okay, so my question is, if you were to put together a team and do team field research, as opposed to qualitative ethnographic research, what kind of people would you recruit in order to further investigate the complexities of embeddedness, social capital, transsentialism, and so forth?
So let me make it clear again. So your question, you mean if I wanted to develop other programs, I need to form a team, so who I will be hired to form the team?
Yeah. If you want to develop another research study.
A research study.
Yeah, a research study, like
If you wanted to expand this.
to do observations and things like that, what would you do?
Okay. I do have a prepared question on that. I just use my mind thinking about what questions I can get out from this. Okay, my question is not as nice as yours. My question, I think about what kind of article I can develop through my dissertations. So, and then in respect to what crews I can recruit them to based on that. So let me develop from my original design this question, and then we can come to combine with your questions. So my question is, what articles I can develop from my dissertation? My dissertation investigated many factors about a small business, from a startup to a establishment. I thought about 4 to 5 articles I can publish clearly with the committee's input, and I can generate excellent studies. The first would focus on transnational connections and mixed embeddedness.
Yes.
The article will further develop my discussion on Chinese immigrant entrepreneurs' transnational connections. I could delve into why some immigrant transnational business can develop their business relationships and why some cannot. Analyze how the institutional and market environment in both countries, China and the US, influence transnational connections. The second paper I think about would be the investigation of the impact of social relationship have on how people view their success and failure. From my dissertation, we already can see my respondents use economic and social factors to judge their success and failure. I can further investigate social capital effects in respect to how people view and improve their situation, and ultimately increase their success and failure rates, or successful or failure rates. I'm not so sure. The third research will study on how female entrepreneurs utilize social connections to deal with male dominance. So what kind of social connections are effective for female entrepreneurs and vice versa? And do these social relationships function the same for the male business owners? Do female entrepreneurs carry more emotional debts as they use their social relationships than their male counterparts? So these 3 ideas can be drawn directly from my dissertation. Other ideas included my data supported Ang's argument. She studied the Chinese diaspora, that one should not assume a diasporic community composed of those belongings to the same ethnic group or a same homeland is unified. From these, I can create other investigative papers. Further, my data also reflects Manjuva's discussion on how the social ties change over time. The change of strong and weak ties on Chinese immigrant small business can be another paper. And my data also showed my respondents become involved in the Chinese community for social and emotional satisfactions. And I checked, there is not a lot of literature about the social capital and immigrant social satisfaction. And I can draw another paper out of it. So,
I agree with that. I've got 6 ideas of my own.
I got a couple too.
But I think the big news of your dissertation, if you will, is that you've taken these abstract concepts, social capital transformation, et cetera, on which there's literature. And what you've done, in my opinion, is that you have shown how fluid and permeable they are, and temporal. You know, because in some cases they change over time. And they all involve, individuals assessing, making decisions about the relevance of these to their lives. So Chinese, for example, is not an attribute of a person. Rather it's a resource. And you may find it useful to use that resource in one community and not another. So in other words, it's not fixed. But I think that finding kind of cuts across all your, I mean, this is a dissertation, which means you're interested in generalizations and so forth, so it's thoroughly appropriate. But one thing that kind of cuts through those is the permeability of those categories.
Okay, I also want to, like my 2 colleagues, I also want to congratulate you to do this amid your family obligation and all that. So that's really a great demonstrate how motivated, how determined you want to complete your study and advance your own career as well as while taking care of your family. And I have the opportunity to meet your family
in the LA.
half years ago while
Right.
in UCLA's event. Now seeing all of them here, that tells me how well your family, this is a family business. Supporting her is a family business. So I'm really grateful for your family as well to supporting to reach this far while she has been doing both professionally and a family. So I really want to congratulate you and how much work, how much effort you have been putting into this. So I think your presentation clearly delineated how much you benefit from your own experience, your motivation. You tell us what motivated you to do this, not just another academic research, but how to benefit your fellow Chinese immigrants, entrepreneurs. So I think that's a really great motivation. And also you were able to step back as a social scientist to digest the information you collect instead of just, I threw this, so let's write something. So I really want to congratulate you on that. Actually, one of your esteemed family member already, when we graded each other, I was already told I'm a tough coach, which may well be the case, but we all know that's for the best interest,
Yes.
the long-term interest of your career
None of
development.
us have that reputation. It's not a bad thing.
Okay, I didn't expect that either. So I guess I have a few questions. Once we discussed because the 3 of us had benefit to read the entire dissertation a few times, we had a discussion about you actually use the transnationalism theory in your empirical study very well. You clearly delineated transnational versus local social tie, social capital. I would have liked to see you discuss more theoretical foundation on how these are intertwined, because you did use intersectionality and all that. But that's maybe next step if you develop your article, not necessarily to redo that part of literature review. Now you have finished your dissertation. You presented the key findings. I hope to ask a question, maybe you may step back, thinking about what exact purpose of your dissertation, the ways in which you now conduct it. Are you thinking about your presenting 2 separate case studies, or your main purpose is to compare and contrast LA case and the Phoenix case? So that's actually my first question. Previous were all comments.
So the first question, sorry, I'm not quite clear. Will you please to say
Even
that
the
again?
transnational one?
No.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh, actually, that's more of a comment. That's not a question. My question is, now you've done your dissertation. What's your main purpose of writing the dissertation as this? Because you are already done, right? So is that to represent two separate case studies, one in LA, one in Phoenix? So you tell two
Right.
different stories, or your purpose maybe also compare and contrast what are the differences of the two, because you obviously did
Right.
some comparison.
Right.
So I would like to hear more. What do you think you want to tell your reader the most?
Okay, that's a good question. Actually, I think it's in this case actually contains both. So it is two case studies. On the other hand, because by social capital, I do wanted to see what social capital can offer. So what can we benefit from it, or what can we avoid from it? So that's why I added in the similarities and differences in the conclusion. But mainly it's still a two case studies, and by mainly I can see how social capital embedded in a specific environment, such as in Phoenix. Phoenix is a relatively newer market for Chinese immigrants, and in a more developed. So from these two markets, what can we benefit from, and what disadvantage we might encounter, and from that, can government provide some help for immigrants? For example, just like government programs. Before I thought probably small business can benefit from it, and surprisingly, they didn't. And only those in the professional fields, especially in the construction, so they can benefit. And they have to, with the female business partner or owned by female, they can benefit from government programs by their minority identities. So otherwise, it's pretty hard for them to benefit from the government program. And also, I would like to see the local American community. Can the local American community provide anything, or can we provide back for the local community? So that's why, at the end I did a comparison, but it's not a huge comparison. But why I did my LA findings, I did a little bit comparison because there's many similarities. If I repeat, there's a lot of redundancy, and also I'm very wordy. I'm a super wordy person, so I repeated myself quite a lot. That's why I try to minimize it, and then I said, oh, okay, I already did this in Phoenix, so I'm not going to repeat it anymore. Right.
Okay, so kind of follow-up question to that. I did notice you ended up doing both presenting separate case study and comparison. This is more about a research design issue. Again, we don't go back to say, what if you did that? But probably for future research is in terms, if you have, that's why I was asking my first question, if you have comparison in mind. Remember, we had communication about it. I asked you why did you select particular interviewees by comparable sectors in both cities, so that you can discuss about the locational difference and all that. So it's more of a research design, or you thinking about you wanted to present two case studies, so then that will not be an issue. So in future, I think that will be, because I remember I copy pasted your answer to me, is that I only selected them based on the business sites, my category of small businesses. Then it's very difficult to, like you said, you did your work. Then you are thinking about tease out what are the similarities and the differences. Had your research design thinking about, I want to compare similar or exact same sector, but if they are very different, what can tell you? So I think that's a potential issue in in how to select your study
Yeah.
subject and all that. So I think I'll stop here. If we go second round, I'll ask more.
Yeah, and one of the things that I was gonna say, the way I've seen people do this, because that's why I was asking about how you selected, to talk more about how you selected each sample. But you can have, if you try to write articles, you can publish about each case. But if you were going to put it in a book, I've seen people do that, but even in the book, they present 2 case studies and talk about how the selection and how they were different. But especially if you tried to do the kind of theoretical integration that Professor Lee is talking about, where you could have these 2 case studies within your book. But and then people do make the comparisons across case, but I think my other comment, I think, ties to both of these questions. But I wrote it down first, so it really is. In Phoenix, because you were involved in an association and you've heard me ask this before, but you knew a lot of the people. And so when they told you they did it this way, nobody helped them. Sometimes through the interview you could tell by the other questions you asked and how they explained things, but then they drew this conclusion. But I always talk about it, the popular singer Frank Sinatra, I did it my way. You know, that was kind of their theme in Phoenix. And you might have known that just from your interviews, but it's also because you had observations of that sample. You did not have so many observations in LA, and so, but they were more likely to credit ties. But that's why when John asked the question about an observational study, what differences might have happened if you'd had observations of the LA sample? Or did you feel like, you know, a little bit with a hand tied behind your back in LA because you didn't know as much about them as the ones you knew in Phoenix?
Actually, in LA, I did have several observations. It's with those people. I'm in the real estate business. Some people I recruited from my previous clients. So, and also respondents were my friends or my relatives. So, and then I observed them over the past few years. So for those people, when they claim the rugged individualism, so from my observation, I can see how social capital helped them. Don't get it wrong, even I say I have more people stated the importance of social capital in LA, I still have people saying, I am the key factor from LA. I have.
Well, it's not 100%.
Right, it's not 100%. I just compare to Phoenix, there's more people saying, okay, social capital is important. Probably one is the age group in the L8. So some people experience the civil rights movement, so they understand how important the society help for them. So from my observation, I can see that they did benefit a lot from their social relationships, but actually they still claim, you know, the rugged individualism. So I benefit from that part, right? But from those who I cannot observe them, so I will expect if I observe their business, I can see more social capital, how it functioned, especially they involved into the local political activities or local service business. Because in Phoenix, the respondents have less tendency to get involved to local, especially the mainstream political activities. So
there's a study done by, and this one's focused more on gender, but by some Italian social science and business professors there in Italy. And they actually sent a team into, and they only did 5 businesses, which tells you, but they sent a team of their researchers in to hang out, to observe those businesses for, I think they did a month each, and they were looking at how the women were business owners, and they wanted to see how they were treated, but they actually sent a team in, but they reduced their sample to 5. So, anyway, one other question. You, in terms of their business success, you don't have what we might call objective measures, like their income and so on. And some people on your committee pushed you away from that. But what do you think you gained or lost by having only their perceived definitions of success?
Can you explain this question?
Well, she's got a much better answer that's in her dissertation, you know. I started this
Sean's
off.
gonna quote you.
I started this off 30 years ago, and all I wanted to do was make more money and make more money. But now I am here, I'm 30 years later, and I realized, hey, this wasn't all about money. It was more important to have.
Okay, so John answered the question.
Thank you so much.
The reason I was giving her a hard time, but she was gonna get their financials, you know, and so on, and look at all this and come up with a definition of success. And I've tried to do that before, and I know that it's like they don't wanna give them to you, and there are all these other things, but it is really interesting how they talked about success.
Right.
Okay, well then, John,
I hope you'll.
and I'm gonna try to answer your question. Of course.
In the mid-70s, I was asked by a commercial publisher to be a book series editor. And I did that for about 25 years, and the intention behind the series was to publish really good dissertations. And so I've read a lot of dissertations in my life, and what I discovered in doing that is that most dissertations are not publishable. Now, we all know some, of course, which have been published, but almost in every case, you will find that a hell of a lot of revision. In some cases, Bob Emerson's an example, he worked 10 years on it before he
I
published
knew
the
you
dissertation.
did take a while on things.
So, and there's a reason for that I came to grasp, and that is, a dissertation is not a book. A dissertation is a book-length document that has a different format to it. And you follow that format exactly. You kind of introduce the topic, you then have 1 or 2 chapters to flesh out the relevant theoretical literature. You have a chapter on the methods used in this study, and then you go to the findings. So, you know, it's kind of, there's a little bit of variation, but that's kind of the way it works. Well, you know, that's not really publishable. I mean, as opposed to a book we pick up off the bookshelf, you know, that author's got to grab you pretty quick. But, you know, another answer to your question really is that you might consider writing a book about Chinese entrepreneurs, but not in the dissertation format, not in the comparative format, but use the actual stories of the people, some of which you quoted, of course, in the dissertation. Those are fabulous stories. You know, really, they're wonderful. And you could show how they're age-related, meaning related to the life cycle and where people are and what they think success is when they're 30 as opposed to 60 and 65. And you could tell about, you know, the women that try to raise, you know, a couple of kids or attend to their kids while they're also involved in an enterprise. That kind of stuff, you know?
Yes, I totally agree.
But, you know, but you could actually, you could address these highly abstract issues that only we professors are concerned about, but you could do it kind of by telling stories and aim it towards the trade market as opposed to the academic.
Yes, exactly, I totally agree. Actually, I have some very interesting story. For example, I have one respondent from Phoenix, Ning. So he came to US undocumented.
Yeah, that one was fascinating.
Yes. He doesn't care about talk about his undocumented identity because I recruit him through snowball sampling. So from my key informers. The key informers also one of my respondents. She went with me to his factory. We have the meeting in his office. His wife's there too. So his wife is his business partner. So, and then when he talked about his undocumented identity, I'm like, oh, do you want me to turn off my recording machine? He said, no, I'm okay with that. I'm so proud of it. Even you tell everybody, you know, I'm so good right now. I can make this business like this big. He's very proud of this, his identity actually, and also he's proud of his education too. He didn't finish his elementary school education, so the key informant referred me there. She said, you should tell her you already finished high school. He said, what for? He said, I didn't finish my elementary school, but I have such a big business, I don't care. And then it's fascinating, and like you're saying, if I can have a specific amount to define the success, he's more than that. He's get over with that amount because he's so proud of himself. He doesn't use the money he makes because he developed several businesses. He said, his major is in the food wholesale. They monopolize the west coast of the Asian food wholesale. So, and then he also had a very small section of computer software or computer hardware stuff. And then he hired a Caucasian lady sitting in a room. She as a receptionist and also take care of the computer hardware. He said, look at her, just this lady here, she making more than 10 million a year. I'm like, what? He's like, why I care about my legal status or my education? He said, only this person can make that much. I don't care. Money for me is nothing. So, and then I asked him, so do you think you're successful? He's like, I have no clue. I'm like, okay, all right. So, thank you so much.
We've apparently got a lot of people who spend many years wanting to be the big boss.
Right.
So what is the big boss? The big boss means I get to go to my office and not work anymore.
Right, exactly.
You know? So then you become the big boss and, well, you know, all your social life has disappeared.
Chinese so obsessed by properties, by real estate. That big boss like, I have so many property and that big screen TV at home. I can monitor every property, somebody inside doing what they're doing.
I will also try to address Nancy's question. I'll come to Jing's defense in terms of her familiarity with LA. Because not because she's most time here, doesn't necessarily mean she doesn't really know LA. She married to an esteemed LA. She has, yeah. Because even when I was a PhD student in LA 25 years ago, I know Mr. Koch and all the institution. So a minor thing, but this is more not necessarily a question that you have to announce. Related to that, like you and Nancy also said in terms of your findings, Phoenix and more individualism, always have more transnational connections, social capital. To what extent these findings are connected to the population size, to the institutional completeness and the business type, the variety or complex Chinese business structure in LA versus Phoenix. So I think extension to that, I think, like Nancy, you yourself said, there are tons of study about Chinese or any immigrant group business in LA. What is lacking, in my view, in academic literature is do more comparative study. So not to say we are suggesting you one way or the other, but I do have one other question, which is, I totally agree with your policy recommendation because I myself and our team did LA ethnic bank, LA in terms of Chinese American, Korean American, Latino, Black American bank. So what we found, and we did in Vancouver as well, San Francisco Bay Area, what we found was exactly what you said. So now my question is, beyond your future, depending on what trajectory you envision, in consultation with your family, because you're very entrepreneurial yourself. You've already done a lot. So based on your dissertation funding, were you to establish a new business, trying to be a bridge between US government, be it federal, state, or local, and immigrant entrepreneurs, immigrant businesses, what will you do?
Man, what I wanted to be when I grew up, I think about it for so many
Or you
years.
can retire. Take care of your
Big
kids.
boss, big boss.
Yes, wow, this is such a good question. It's hit my heart, like, because everybody seems like what you wanted to do after you graduated. Like, my husband said, after you die, you can put your degree on your tomb.
No, you can always put with your degree. That's a given. By now, that's a given. But
Yes, so, let me think about it. I really wanted to do a consultant. It kind of like helping small business, Chinese, Asian small business, especially when I seen the Asian bank in the Chinese Culture Center trying to help the local Chinese business, and finally they didn't make it. They couldn't survive.
Right, yeah. Good.
So, and such a shame.
That was pity.
Yes, and if, especially when you see, especially in Phoenix, you can see how hard, how struggle an immigrant small business need to struggle. And if I can do something, because here you just almost start from scratch. There's just not a lot establishment here. It's fascinating for me to see government program. For example, for the small business, their website is so easy. You can just like language choice. You can at least have certain language choices. That's not hard, but they couldn't even provide that. Why? If you for small business, a lot are immigrants. So why not? It doesn't take much effort to do that. So if I can be a bridge between that would be great.
yeah, definitely.
Are we all set? Would you all like to ask some questions?
Sure.
Yes.
First of all, I agree, this was a really very professional presentation. It was excellent, so congratulations on that. I've not read the dissertation, of course, but the presentation was primo. One of the things I thought about when you were describing one of your cases was the guy that was the undocumented guy. And I put that in the context of listening to the news every day, reading the paper, watching television, listening to radio, and there seems to be, reportedly at least, an anti-immigrant bias in the United States right now. Did the people you interview speak to that? Does it affect their lives?
Very good questions. Anti-immigrants. Very interesting, because most of my respondents, they're small business, they are marginalized. And it's so obvious when I talk to them from that context, they just use "we" to refer to Chinese ethnic groups. And then just I introduced, they use "grade" to refer to non-Chinese groups. But when you're asking, are you related or closely, or are you in the mainstream society? The answer was yes. Surprisingly, the answer was yes. I'm like, how can? So, because they already said it so clear. One of my respondents said, I don't trust Americans. They lie to me. They try to trick me. I need to use my own judgment to tell, are this truth or not? But you ask him, are you in the mainstream? He said, yeah, I'm in the mainstream. I'm like, why? Because I'm in a restaurant. I'm in a food-related service business. Everybody need to eat, right? So I'm the mainstream industry. I'm like, oh, okay. So, and then when you asked about how do you feel the American society, most of them said American, especially for those with no English skill or limited English skill. That's answer my professor's Jurik's question is my observation from some LA respondents. He lived in LA more than 30 years. He still doesn't speak English. And then he's saying, American is good. It's #1 country in the world. It's so fair. There's no such thing called racial issues or this. So he's saying, everybody's saying he said, I took my kids to school. The teacher saying I can speak some English. She said, you're so good. You Chinese can speak English. That's so good. I'm so proud of you. He said, see, this is America. He said, I'm so proud I'm in here, but he doesn't speak English. So what he did, he can speak words. He doesn't speak good sentence. And then he is the subcontractor for like Macy, for those big companies. So, and then he took the order and then he subcontract to individuals. So we couldn't call it swap shop, but anyway. So, and then he doesn't make that much profit. And he tried to expand his business in 2000. At that time, he did pretty good. He tried to build his own brand. At that time, he told me, I asked him, what do you define as success? He said, well, by 2000, he wanted to develop his own brand. And then he expanded his business to 200 employees because the economic crisis hit him. So he had to shrink his employee to 10 people, to 10 employees. And mostly, like I said, is subcontracting. So he let those immigrants to take the order back home, how much they make per piece, and then he paid them. So instead, they stayed in his factory to make garments. So and then he changed his definition for success. It's like, success means you need to be your family. You need to watch how your kids grow up. He said that's John Locke, the ambassador in China. He quit his job in China. He said that's why he came back to US to stay his family. That's called successful guy. He said that's why I need to concentrate on my family. That's I'm a successful guy. And then you ask him about are you marginalized, or does the American society you feel the anti-immigrants? No, America is the best country. So I don't feel anything about it. So that's his answer.
Thank you.
Other questions? Yes.
Yeah, so one of your interviewees said, and you quote in your presentation, Chinese are very cliquish. And you also use...
Sorry, Chinese what?
Cliquish.
Oh, cliquish.
Cliquish. And one of your framework theory is Zulema Balde's book. Zulema Balde's. Here, I guess. Yeah, I'm sorry, my pronunciation is not good. And she mentioned that Mexican immigrants think Chinese people are very united in terms of the entrepreneurs. So do you think united means cliquish, or cliquish means united?
Well, so I don't think united means cliquish. Cliquish, I think united is a more a mutual. It doesn't have the negative and positive meaning. It's just a mutual word. But cliquish is a little bit how to say contains a little bit negative. Contains barriers inside. So that's why my interviewees, when they talk about how cliquish is, they also associate it with in-group competition and jealousy, because they're so close to each other. So it kind of like squeezes the environment, especially in Phoenix. The market is very limited. And if they concentrated in the same industry, so the competition is very severe in Phoenix. That's why they use cliquish in here, because they're so cliquish. So the unless, like Mother said, if the community is a resource-rich community, so it provides more sources for immigrants, so they will have more opportunities. However, in a resource-scarce ethnic communities, such as in Phoenix, so they tend to have a resentment against each other. So the cliquish kind of represent that part.
Anyone else have a question?
I have a question.
You gotta watch out for.
I'm looking at this demographic chart here, and it's amazing. Is this the age group of the respondents that you interviewed who had businesses or were in businesses? Because I see the age group for 60 plus, there were 10 people. That certainly wasn't in LA, I bet. That was probably in Phoenix, right?
In both cases, right. Yeah.
So, was there a difference in the age group in LA than in Phoenix? Were they younger in LA and older in Phoenix?
Actually, it's my snowball sampling, because through my snowball sampling, I approach the age groups is more matured age groups, especially if I found it from the like the committee of 100, so they kind of like already established. So I do have several respondents. Their age is from 30 to 40. I do have several.
There were more than the older group then?
No, the
No.
older groups more. Yeah.
It was older, okay.
Yeah.
But were they older in LA or older in Phoenix?
In both cases.
In
Generally in
both
both cases, right. Because I have 9 interviewees in Phoenix and 14 in LA. So if you're looking at the total number, yes, LA has more. But you look at percentage, almost
Yes,
similar, right.
It's because businesses, people that own businesses tend to be older. There are a lot more of them, 40 plus.
Right,
Right.
And probably you've got, you know,
Right.
so older.
Right, and also probably because the student after they graduated, they wanted to stay in America. If you wanted to do the EB-5, the investment visa here, you need to have huge amount of investment. So for younger people, unless your family is really affluent, so you won't be able to get as much work.
Yeah.
And US doesn't have an entrepreneur visa. So even if people are very entrepreneurial, if they're international students, they want to stay, there's no other route but H-1B, essentially. With rare occasion, and then O1, which nobody can reach.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, now what I'm going to do is ask everyone but the committee to leave, and we have to discuss, and then we'll come out and get you, and it won't be terribly long, but will you?
Don't go too far.
But we're gonna talk long enough to allow you to go down and talk to Brianna and see if we could have something to sign. I know we have to go online and
Yeah,
each
sure.
sign,
Yeah.
but it would be nice to have something here.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.